February 20th, 1943, North Africa, Tunisia. The sun had barely risen when German tank commanders witnessed something they could not explain. Through the smoke and desert dust of Kasserine Pass, 5 American Sherman tanks appeared, scattered, hidden behind broken ridgelines, with no line of sight between them. And yet, they moved as one, each Sherman sliding into position at the perfect moment, covering each other's blind spots, striking German lines with impossible coordination. No flags, no flares, no runners shouting orders between tanks. To the Germans, it looked supernatural, like the American armor was guided by a single mind. But the truth was even more terrifying. It wasn't ghosts or luck or some mysterious battlefield instinct. It was technology, something invisible, something the Germans had never imagined possible. The Americans were fighting as the world's first fully networked army. While German Panzer IV commanders struggled to hear their orders through a storm of static, the Shermans were talking to each other in crystal clarity. Inside every American tank sat the most decisive and the most overlooked weapon of World War II, the SCR 508 frequency modulation radio set. 25 watts of power, crystal control precision, 10 preset channels, and a clarity so sharp that even in the middle of artillery fire, voices cut through like whispers in a quiet room. Across the desert, German radios sputtered with noise. Their FUG-5 transmitters, state-of-the-art in the 1930s, barely reached 2 kilometers when tanks were moving. Static drowned out every command. Most German tanks didn't even have transmitters at all, just receivers. They could listen, but never speak. When the lead command tank was knocked out, the rest of the platoon became deaf and mute, left to guess their next move. The Americans had no such weakness. The transformation began not on the battlefield, but in American factories, long before the Shermans faced their first fight. July 22nd, 1941, the U.S. Army standardized 3 new radio sets, the SCR 508, SCR 528, and SCR 538. Each one designed around a revolutionary technology, FM, frequency modulation. Unlike German AM systems that picked up every electrical spark as noise, FM erased the static. It was the invention of Edwin Armstrong, licensed to the military and perfected by engineers at Galvin Manufacturing, later known as Motorola. 2 names mattered most: Daniel Enoble, the man who envisioned FM inside tanks; Henryk Magnuski, the genius RF engineer who made it possible, building electronics tough enough to survive inside a battlefield monster. Their creation weighed 181 pounds. Heavy, yes, but powerful enough to transform a Sherman into a node in the world's first battlefield network. November 8th, 1942, Operation Torch. American tanks rolled ashore in North Africa, carrying these radios. The German Afrika Korps, perhaps the most battle-hardened armored force on Earth, suddenly found themselves blind. A standard German platoon of 5 tanks? Maybe 2 had full transmitters. The rest? Receivers only. Orders came down, but no information could flow back up. When a German command tank was destroyed, its platoon became leaderless. Easy prey. The Americans were different. Every tank, every single one, could take command, report enemy positions, call for artillery, and warn comrades of ambushes. A battlefield where destroying the leader no longer killed the formation. It was a revelation, and the Germans noticed. February 14th to 24th, 1943, the Battle of Kasserine Pass. The Wehrmacht won that fight on the ground, yes. But in the chaos, something more important was revealed. Scattered fragments of the U.S. 1st Armored Division, spread across 50 miles, still fought as one coordinated force. Tank crews who had never met communicated like old comrades. They warned each other of threats miles away. They called down artillery within minutes. They launched coordinated attacks without ever seeing each other. The German 10th Panzer Division's intelligence section intercepted these transmissions. Their report admitted something terrifying. The Americans maintained clarity and coordination at ranges where our radios produced nothing but static. And worse, every American tank, not just the leaders, could transmit. The Reich had pioneered armored warfare. Guderian's blitzkrieg doctrine depended on radios to move fast and strike hard. But by 1943, Germany was losing the very tool that had once given it dominance. America had not just caught up, they had leapt ahead. The secret was simple physics. German FUG-5 radios, operating on amplitude modulation in the 27 to 33 MHz range, suffered constant interference. Spark plugs firing, engines roaring, treads grinding across stone. Every electrical noise became a scream in the German headset. American FM radios filtered it out completely. What reached the Sherman crew's ears was clear, precise, and reliable. By September 1943, the Americans carried this invisible advantage into Italy. Mountain ridges and deep valleys killed German radio signals completely. But the SCR 508 thrived, bending through terrain where AM radios simply failed. Sherman tanks hidden behind ridgelines coordinated as if they were side by side. German doctrine said that was impossible without visual contact. Yet again, the battlefield proved otherwise. And so, by the time American armor rolled off the beaches of Normandy on June 6, 1944, they were not just bringing tanks. They were bringing a weapon the Germans could neither see nor match, a living, breathing, radio-connected war machine. But even in Normandy, a dangerous flaw would appear, one that nearly cost lives, and one that would spark the next great innovation in American tank warfare. Inside a Sherman tank, war didn't sound like chaos. It sounded like a voice. Clear, calm, confident. While commanders gave orders, every crewman stayed connected. The BC 606 intercom system linked each man to the commander. Throat microphones and noise-canceling headsets cut through the roar of engines and the thunder of battle. A loader spotting a threat could call it out instantly. A gunner could confirm targets in seconds. In German tanks, it was the opposite. Many lacked intercoms entirely. Crews banged on armor, tapped shoulders, or screamed over the deafening noise. Coordination inside the tank itself was a struggle, let alone between vehicles. And the gap widened even further. Power. American radios adapted automatically to 12 or 24 volts, running through dynamo-powered systems that filtered out interference. German radios? Wired straight into the tank's dirty electrical system. Every spark plug and motor surge blasting the headset with static. The result? American crews heard the battlefield. Germans fought half-deaf. This invisible advantage reshaped American doctrine. The U.S. didn't just fight with tanks, they fought with networks. Commanders could mix and match units into ad hoc task forces, confident they could still coordinate. A Sherman platoon, a tank destroyer unit, a recon troop, and artillery observers, different formations, different missions, all bound together through radios that spoke the same language. 4 German commanders, raised in rigid hierarchy, this flexibility was baffling. They simply couldn't imagine such fluidity. September 1944, the Battle of Kasserine. The U.S. 4th Armored Division faced German Panzer brigades bristling with Panthers, tanks far superior in armor and firepower. On paper, the Germans should have crushed them, but radio coordination turned the tide. Sherman's called out threats the instant they appeared. Tank destroyers, waiting in ambush, received targeting data from tanks miles away. Artillery observers, embedded inside command Shermans, unleashed barges within minutes. In just 3 weeks, the 4th Armored destroyed 281 German armored vehicles, while losing only 41 Shermans. A kill ratio of 7-to-1. Numbers that made no sense if you only looked at armor thickness or gun caliber. But numbers that made perfect sense once you understood the invisible network tying every Sherman together. And still, the Germans refused to see it. Capture reports in September 1944 acknowledged American radio discipline and coordination, but chalked it up to training, not technology. German officers still hunted command tanks with multiple antennas, not realizing every Sherman could take command. They still staged ambushes, assuming American units would fall apart once separated. Instead, radios held them together like an unbreakable chain. March 1945, the Rhine. At Remagen, when the 9th Armored Division stumbled across the Ludendorff Bridge, still standing, it took minutes for the news to spread by radio. Within the hour, entire divisions were shifting to exploit it. German commanders, reliant on telephone lines shredded by Allied bombers, couldn't react fast enough. Counterattacks came piecemeal, uncoordinated, and were obliterated. American speed was not just armor rolling forward. It was information moving at the speed of radio waves. April 1945, the Ruhr Pocket. The war's endgame. Over 325,000 German troops found themselves trapped in a double envelopment coordinated almost entirely by radio. Inside the pocket, German units lost contact with higher headquarters. Airstrikes, guided by forward air controllers with radios welded into Sherman tanks, erased German communications one by one. Field Marshal Walter Model's final messages were desperate. No contact with adjacent units. No communication with higher headquarters. Coordination impossible. The Wehrmacht wasn't just being crushed by tanks. It was being strangled by silence. But beyond strategy and victories, there was the human effect. For American crews, the radio was comfort. Even alone on a smoky battlefield, they knew they were never truly isolated. A voice was always in their ears, reminding them that help was near. For German crews, the opposite was true. Tankers fought individual duels, blind to what was happening around them. Otto Carius, one of Germany's greatest aces, later wrote about the crushing isolation of fighting without reliable communication. Each battle felt like a lonely, personal struggle because it was the difference defined the war. While Germany built tanks with thicker armor and bigger guns, America built tanks that worked together. In December 1944, even General Heinz Guderian, father of Blitzkrieg, admitted in a private memorandum that American coordination was neutralizing Germany's hardware advantage. After the war, the truth was undeniable. U.S. Army Technical Intelligence Report Number 176 concluded German tank communications were 5 years behind American systems. Range, clarity, stability, every category exposed German weakness. Even the Soviets, after capturing German equipment, chose not to copy it. Instead, they based their post-war tank radios on American FM designs. The statistics told the story. American radios produced over 50,000. Sherman tanks produced 49,324. Deployment rate, 100%. Transmission power, 25 watts. Range on the move, up to 7 miles. Range stationary, up to 15 miles. By contrast, German Fug-5 radios produced 6 from Normandy to the Gulf War, from Desert Storm to Iraq 2003. The same lesson repeats. Tanks with the best guns and armor mean little without the ability to fight as one. In the end, the Sherman's greatest weapon was not its 75mm gun, not its armor, not its numbers. It was 181 pounds of radio equipment, forged in American factories, that turned thousands of individual tanks into one unstoppable machine. The Germans built better tanks. The Americans built better armies. And in war, connection meant survival. Isolation meant defeat. The invisible waves of the SCR 508 decided battles long before a single shell was fired, and changed the future of warfare forever.